You don't need to shout your worth. Real value doesn't beg to be noticed. It's quietly undeniable. Every high value woman I've met has one thing in common. It's not about how loud she speaks, how perfect she looks, or how much she achieves. It's about the soft habits that shape her energy, her boundaries, and her peace. So today, let's talk about 5 soft habits that silently tell the world you're not just valuable, you're rare. You know what separates women who are constantly drained from those who seem deeply centered and peaceful? It's not that their lives are easier. It's that they've mastered one quiet, skill, graceful boundaries. This is where real self-respect begins. Boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity. They're not about shutting people out, but about keeping your peace in. When a woman learns to set limits with grace, she stops moving from one emotional emergency to another. She starts moving from intention. Most people misunderstand boundaries. They think it means becoming rigid or distant, like you have to harden yourself to be respected. But the truth is, boundaries done right don't look hard at all. They look calm. They sound kind. They feel steady. A high value woman doesn't say, "Don't talk to me." She says, "I'm not available for that right now." She doesn't need to raise her voice to make her line known. Her energy does that for her. Her calmness speaks volumes, and that calmness comes from one thing: self-awareness. You can't set graceful boundaries until you know your own limits, what drains you, what fuels you, and what crosses that invisible line between kindness and self-betrayal. The moment you start noticing what feels heavy in your spirit, that's when you start building the blueprint for your peace. Because every time you say yes when your heart is screaming no, you teach people to ignore your silence. But when you honor your own voice, even softly, the world adjusts around your standards. And here's the part that most people don't tell you. Setting boundaries will test you. When you first start saying no, you'll feel guilty. You'll feel like you're letting people down. But that discomfort is proof that you're finally breaking the habit of people pleasing. Every boundary you set is an act of self-trust. It says, "I believe my peace matters." And the more you practice it, the more natural it feels. Soon, no stops sounding like rejection and starts sounding like self-respect. Now, graceful doesn't mean passive. You don't let disrespect slide and call it peace. You simply choose how you respond. You can correct someone without losing your tone. You can express disappointment without losing your dignity. That's grace power under control. Because your boundary isn't just what you say, it's how you say it. It's the pause before the reaction, the calm before the correction, the peace before the point. When a woman carries this kind of presence, people notice. They notice she's not easily swayed, not easily guilted, and definitely not easily manipulated. But they also notice that she's approachable. That's the beauty of graceful boundaries. They protect your energy without closing your heart. You're still warm, still loving, but there's a quiet message in the way you carry yourself. You can come close, but only in respect. And let's be honest, not everyone will like your boundaries. Some people benefited from your lack of them. They'll call you cold, distant, even selfish. Let them talk. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be at peace with yourself. Because at the end of the day, boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about controlling your access, your energy, your focus. So when you start to feel that pull to over-explain, to justify your limits, pause and remind yourself, peace doesn't need to defend itself. It just needs to be lived. The more you live it, the more it becomes who you are. A woman who knows her worth doesn't need to shout it. She just walks in it with quiet confidence and graceful boundaries, and the world falls in line. Because when you move with grace, you don't need force. Your peace becomes your power. Emotional composure. It's one of the hardest things to master, yet one of the most powerful qualities a woman can have. Because let's be honest, the world often tests your calm. People say things that cut deep, situations don't go as planned, and emotions rise faster than logic can catch up. But the women who carry quiet strength don't let those moments own them. They've learned that their first reaction isn't their truest self, it's their most human self. And wisdom comes from creating a little space between the two. That space, that pause, is everything. It's where your power lives. When you stop reacting instantly and start observing instead, you shift from emotional chaos to emotional control. You start to realize that not everything needs your reaction. Not every comment needs your defense. And not every argument deserves your energy. Because sometimes silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you've chosen peace over proving a point. Now, emotional composure doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting feelings drive the car. You still feel the hurt, the anger, the disappointment. You just don't let those emotions steer your decisions. You take a breath, you step back, you decide what response aligns with your peace, not your pride. And that's what makes it powerful, because it's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about mastering them. Think about it. Anyone can explode. Anyone can lash out, post a subtweet, or send that long, heated message they'll regret later. But it takes real maturity to stay calm when everything in you wants to react. That's emotional composure. It's not a performance, it's discipline. The kind that says, I won't let someone else's chaos turn me into someone I'm not. When you practice this habit, people start to feel your steadiness. They realize they can't easily shake you, and that earns respect even from those who try to provoke you. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to control. And that's when emotional composure becomes your quiet superpower. It keeps your energy sacred, your mind clear, and your dignity intact. Here's something else. Composure isn't coldness. It's emotional intelligence in motion. It's the ability to feel deeply and still choose wisely. You can cry, you can hurt, you can express. Just do it with intention. The goal isn't to look unbothered. It's to actually be unshaken inside. That's what makes people wonder how you stay so calm when things fall apart. Because you've learned that panic never fixes problems. Presence does. Sometimes it's as simple as pausing before you speak. That one breath between emotion and action can change everything. It gives you a moment to ask yourself, what outcome do I really want here? Do you want to be right, or do you want to stay at peace? Because often, the cost of winning an argument is losing your calm, and that's too high a price for a woman who knows her worth. People often remember how you made them feel more than what you said. So when you carry composure, you make others feel safe in your presence. You become that steady energy in a chaotic world. And ironically, the more calm you bring to situations, the more control you have over them, not by force, but by focus. There will be days when your emotions feel louder than your logic, when you want to shout, cry, or prove your point. On those days, remind yourself, strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it breathes, it pauses, it chooses grace, because peace isn't found in controlling everything around you. It's found in mastering what's within you. When you learn to stay calm in the storm, you stop fearing the rain. You become the stillness that makes others want to follow your lead. Thoughtful communication is one of the most overlooked habits of a high-value woman. It's not about being the loudest in the room or having the sharpest comeback. It's about speaking with intention. Because when you truly understand the power of words, you stop using them to control and start using them to connect. You stop talking to be right and start speaking to be understood. There's a quiet elegance in that shift, the kind that makes people listen, not because you demand attention, but because you've earned it through presence and sincerity. A high-value woman doesn't speak from ego, she speaks from clarity. She's not interested in arguing to win, she's more interested in understanding, in staying grounded, in keeping her peace intact. She knows that her tone can heal or harm, and she chooses her words with that awareness. She understands that what she says carries weight, not just because of her vocabulary, but because of her composure. When she speaks, people don't just hear her, they feel her intention. It's easy to talk when emotions are high. It's easy to throw words like weapons when you feel misunderstood or hurt. But thoughtful communication requires patience, the kind that takes a breath before speaking, the kind that asks, is this helping or hurting the situation? Because once words are out, you can't take them back. You can apologize, yes, but the impact stays. So she doesn't rush to fill silence. She lets it settle. She listens fully. She speaks when she has something worth saying. Listening, that's the other half of thoughtful communication. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. But a woman who values herself also values others enough to listen. She doesn't interrupt just to prove her intelligence or dominance. She listens because she knows listening is a sign of strength, not submission. It's an act of grace, the kind that says, I don't need to overpower this conversation. I'm secure enough to hear you out. And that's what makes her presence disarming. She can disagree without disrespect. She can correct without humiliating. She can express her boundaries without raising her voice. That's what makes her communication powerful. It's not reactive, it's reflective. And because of that, people trust her words. They know when she speaks, it's real. When she compliments someone, it's sincere. When she gives feedback, it's honest but kind. That balance between truth and empathy is what separates her from everyone else. And here's what most people miss. Thoughtful communication doesn't just happen with others. It starts with how you talk to yourself. The way you speak in your mind, the way you handle your mistakes, your failures, your insecurities, that tone becomes your default. If you constantly speak to yourself with criticism, you'll speak to others defensively. But when you practice compassion in your inner dialogue, that same softness spills into every conversation you have. A high-value woman doesn't gossip to feel closer to others. She doesn't use sarcasm to feel powerful. She doesn't tear others down to seem strong, because she knows that the way she communicates reflects the kind of peace she carries inside. Her words aren't tools for validation, they're expressions of integrity. And when she speaks from that place, her voice carries a different kind of authority, not loud, not demanding, but deeply grounded. In moments of conflict, she remembers that silence can be a form of communication too. Not the cold kind that punishes, but the wise kind that chooses peace over pride. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing, not because you're weak, but because you're centered enough to know your calm will say more than your words ever could. Because when you learn to speak with intention instead of emotion, your words stop competing for attention. They start commanding respect. There's a quiet kind of strength in a woman who's not constantly chasing, who's not running after validation, attention, or approval. She moves differently. She's not desperate for connection because she's already connected to herself. That's the essence of self-respect and stillness. It's the art of being comfortable in your own presence, of knowing that your worth doesn't depend on who chooses you, texts you, or praises you. You've already chosen yourself. And when you learn to sit in that stillness without needing to fill it, something powerful happens. You start attracting peace instead of chaos, respect instead of crumbs, love instead of confusion. The world teaches us to stay busy, to keep chasing, to prove we're enough by doing more. But real value doesn't chase, it attracts. A woman who respects herself knows that she doesn't need to constantly perform to be worthy. She doesn't need to fight for attention that was never meant for her. She understands that peace is the reward of self-trust. When she walks away from something that disrespects her, she doesn't do it to make a point. She does it because she's finally done betraying her own peace for temporary comfort. Stillness isn't laziness, it's strength under control. It's choosing not to react to every trigger, not to jump into every opportunity that looks shiny but feels wrong. It's the pause before the decision, the moment of truth where she checks in with her intuition and asks, does this align with who I am, or am I doing it just to feel seen? Because when you respect yourself, you stop chasing moments that cost your peace. You realize that anything forced isn't meant for you, and anything meant for you won't require you to lose yourself to keep it. There's something magnetic about a woman who's grounded in stillness. She doesn't over-explain why she walked away. She doesn't rush to prove she's okay. She doesn't compete, compare, or beg for closure. Her silence becomes her statement. Her peace becomes her presence. And people feel that. They feel it in her energy, in her posture, in the way she speaks slowly, intentionally, as if she knows she doesn't need to rush for anyone's approval. That's the kind of woman people remember, the one who values herself quietly but firmly, the one who doesn't crumble when someone withdraws affection because her self-worth was never on loan, the one who rests not because she's given up, but because she knows rest is how she reclaims her power. Stillness doesn't mean nothing's happening, it means everything is aligning. It means she's not in a hurry, because she knows the right things take time and the wrong things fall away on their own. But here's the truth. Staying still in a world that glorifies chasing takes courage. It's uncomfortable to wait. It's hard to be patient. But that's where maturity grows, in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. And the woman who honors that space, who uses her stillness to heal, to reflect, to listen, she becomes unstoppable. Because when she finally moves again, it's not out of need, it's out of choice. She's not afraid of losing people anymore because she's realized that losing peace for people is a greater loss. She's not afraid of being misunderstood because she'd rather be at peace and misread than loud and lost. Her stillness speaks for her. It tells the world, I'm not here to chase. I'm here to receive what's aligned, what's real, what's meant for me. Because when you learn to respect yourself enough to be still, you stop proving your worth and start living it. Compassion with standards, it sounds almost contradictory, doesn't it? People often think being soft-hearted means being soft-boundaried, that kindness requires you to lower your expectations, or that love demands compromise to the point of self-loss. But the truth is, the most magnetic women I've seen balance heart and standards effortlessly. They care deeply, but they never sacrifice themselves for someone else's approval. Their compassion isn't weakness, it's carefully chosen strength. A high-value woman understands that giving doesn't mean emptying herself. She knows the difference between nurturing someone and losing herself in the process. She can support, uplift, and love without tolerating disrespect, manipulation, or neglect. That's the power of having standards while being compassionate. She doesn't lower the bar to make someone feel comfortable around her. She raises the bar because she values herself enough to insist on healthy connections. And in doing so, she naturally attracts people who are worthy of her energy. The world will often test your limits. It will challenge your patience, push against your boundaries, and try to make you feel guilty for saying no. But compassion with standards is about responding to these situations with wisdom, not reaction. It's about loving fully, but refusing to accept anything less than what you deserve. A woman who masters this habit doesn't beg for respect, she expects it. She doesn't plead for love, she recognizes it. And she doesn't chase validation because she's already validated herself internally. Compassion with standards also means understanding that love isn't always convenient. It's not always about giving in or smoothing things over. Sometimes it's about tough conversations delivered kindly, standing firm when things feel uncomfortable, and letting go when what's coming back to you is less than what you're giving. That's the quiet power of this habit, the ability to extend care without compromising self-worth. People may not always understand it at first, but they respect it, even silently. A woman who practices this doesn't shrink herself to make others feel safe. She doesn't dim her light or soften her expectations to avoid conflict. She's kind, but she's not naive. She knows that the world will sometimes mistake her patience for weakness, but she doesn't mind. She's not here to be misunderstood. She's here to be authentic. And authenticity, when paired with compassion and standards, becomes magnetic. It draws the right people in and gently filters the rest out. This is also about consistency. Standards aren't flexible, depending on mood or circumstance. They're a reflection of your self-respect. Compassion isn't situational either. It's a choice made every day to treat others with empathy and understanding, even when you're not required to. When these two forces work together, they create a woman who is approachable yet untouchable, loving yet untouchably strong, soft yet undeniably powerful. People feel her energy, they feel her clarity, and they realize that she's someone who will never settle for less than what she deserves. And let's not forget, this balance has a ripple effect. When a woman holds compassion with standards for herself, she inspires others to do the same. She teaches without lecturing, influences without pressure, and uplifts without losing herself. She becomes a model for how kindness and strength can coexist seamlessly. That's the kind of presence that makes a lasting impression, one that people remember long after they've left the room. So, the lesson here is simple. You can be soft, and you can still be formidable. You can love, and you can still expect respect. You can give, and you can still protect your peace. The balance of compassion and standards is not a compromise, it's mastery. Because when you give with love, but hold to your standards, you don't just attract respect and loyalty, you embody it. There's a subtle power in consistency that most people overlook. A high-value woman isn't defined by dramatic gestures or fleeting moments of excellence. She's defined by the habits she carries day in and day out. It's not about perfection, it's about steady alignment with who she truly is. When people see her, they don't just notice her presence. They notice the rhythm of her life, the way her energy flows with purpose, the way her actions quietly reinforce her values. That consistency is magnetic because it tells the world that she is reliable, grounded, and unwavering in her self-respect. Consistency isn't just about showing up for others, though that's part of it. It's about showing up for yourself first. It's the small choices you make every day, choosing peace over drama, integrity over shortcuts, self-care over neglect. Each decision compounds over time, building a foundation that can't be shaken by chaos or criticism. A woman who is consistent doesn't allow her moods, the opinions of others, or temporary setbacks to dictate her behavior. She stays true to her principles, and that steadiness is what earns her quiet admiration and deep respect. Most people confuse consistency with rigidity, but they are very different. Rigidity is inflexible. It resists growth. Consistency, on the other hand, is reliable but adaptable. It allows for evolution without compromise. A high-value woman can navigate change, face challenges, and still maintain the core of who she is. She doesn't bend her values to fit convenience, and she doesn't abandon her standards to avoid discomfort. Instead, she adjusts her methods while remaining aligned with her essence. That's what makes her influence enduring. People trust her because they know what to expect. Not predictably boring, but predictably authentic. Consistency also communicates confidence without words. When your actions consistently reflect your values, you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You don't have to brag, explain, or perform. People notice the way you handle situations, the way you treat others, and the way you honor your commitments. They notice that your behavior doesn't change when it's inconvenient, when it's challenging, or when it's unseen. That's a rare quality, and it's magnetic. Consistency creates a reputation that words alone could never build. Another layer of this habit is the way it shapes relationships. A woman who is consistent sets a standard for how she expects to be treated. She doesn't tolerate unpredictability in respect or loyalty. She communicates through her actions what she values and what she will not compromise. And because she is reliable, the people she allows into her circle feel safe. They feel a sense of trust that goes beyond superficial interactions because they know her integrity is steadfast. That security is invaluable, and it attracts people who are equally committed to growth and mutual respect. Consistency also nurtures self-trust. When you repeatedly act in alignment with your principles, you begin to rely on yourself in ways you never thought possible. You don't second guess your decisions constantly, and you don't need external validation to feel secure. That internal reliability becomes your anchor in turbulent times. Even when the world around you is unpredictable, you remain steady because your foundation was built through consistent action, small decision by small decision. And it's the little things, often unnoticed, that make the biggest impact. Consistently keeping your word, maintaining your energy, practicing patience, showing up with kindness. These are the habits that accumulate into undeniable presence. They don't need to be flashy, they just need to exist, because over time, consistency becomes your signature, the silent proof of your character and value. Because when you live with consistency, your life doesn't just show who you are. It quietly demands the respect, loyalty, and admiration that your character has earned.